Duty. Understanding George Washington's philosophy through 10 essential documents. Rules of civility and decent behavior in company and conversation. 1745. I copied these 110 maxims as a mere boy of 14, yet they became the foundation of all I have ever endeavored to be. They taught me that true strength lies not in force of arms or rank, but in constant self-mastery, respect for others, and quiet humility. Every action, I learned, must carry some sign of deference. One must never puff up the cheeks with pride, nor speak ill of the absent. Through these simple rules, I formed the habit of governing my passions before I ever governed men. They instilled in me the conviction that a leader's first duty is to command himself, to keep nails clean, words measured, and countenance pleasant, yet grave in serious matters. From youth I resolved to live by them, and in every command and every public office I strove to prove that republican virtue begins with private decency. These copied lines were no mere school exercise. They were the silent charter by which I measured my own conduct for the rest of my days. From Valley Forge to the New Hampshire Convention, December 29th, 1777. At Valley Forge, with my army barefoot and starving in the snow, I wrote to the states requesting for the bare necessities of life. In that letter, I laid bare the philosophy that has guided me always. A leader must share the suffering of those he commands, and speak the plain truth, even when it shames those who should support him. I did not rail or threaten. I simply described the reality, so that duty might move them where eloquence could not. This plea reveals my core conviction that motivation flows from example and shared hardship, not from lofty rhetoric alone. I have never asked of my men what I would not endure myself, and I have never concealed the cost of liberty. The letter stands as proof that governance requires both compassion for the soldier and unyielding resolve to speak truth to power. Through such appeals, I learned that the strength of a republic rests upon the willingness of its leaders to suffer with the people they serve. Newburgh Address to the Officers of the Army, March 15, 1783. When my officers, weary and unpaid, threatened rebellion at Newburgh, I addressed them not with anger, but with the full weight of my own honor. I read them a letter from a congressman, and then, in a moment of profound silence, put on my spectacles and said, "Gentlemen, you must pardon me. I have grown gray in your service, and now find myself growing blind." That single gesture calmed the storm. The address embodies my deepest philosophy. True leadership is restraint, not force. Authority is preserved by surrendering the temptation to seize more power. I have always believed that the army must remain subordinate to civil government, and that personal example can achieve what coercion never can. In that hour, I proved that motivation arises from trust in a commander's integrity far more than from promises of reward. The Newburgh Address remains my clearest statement that Republican liberty demands leaders who place country above self and passion above all. Circular Letter to the States, June 8, 1783. Upon laying down my sword, I sent this letter to the governors of the states as my final military testament. I urge them to strengthen the Union, honor public credit, and cultivate the virtues that alone can sustain a republic. Here I set forth my settled conviction that governance must rest upon a firm central authority, that without national unity we shall become a prey to foreign powers and domestic factions. The letter reveals my lifelong philosophy. Liberty and order are not opposites, but inseparable partners. The soldier's sacrifice is wasted unless the citizen accepts the duties of self-government. I wrote not as a conqueror, but as a citizen, warning that the same spirit of independence that won the war must now be tempered by wisdom and mutual forbearance. This circular letter is the clearest map I ever drew of the path a free people must walk, if they are to remain free. Resignation of his commission as Commander-in-Chief, December 23, 1783. Before the assembled Congress in Annapolis, I returned the commission they had given me, declaring that I had now finished the work assigned me by my country. In that act, I embodied the central tenet of my political faith. Power is a trust, not a prize. The moment the people's safety no longer requires my sword, it must be laid down. I had watched other revolutions devour their own leaders. I resolved that the American Revolution would not. The resignation reveals my philosophy that true greatness consists in knowing when to relinquish authority. I sought no crown, no perpetual command, only the quiet satisfaction of having served with honor. This moment remains the clearest proof I can offer that Republican virtue demands leaders who love liberty more than power. By returning to private life, I hope to teach my countrymen that the Republic is safest when its servants remember they are citizens first. First Inaugural Address, April 30th, 1789. Standing before the people as their first president, I spoke with the deepest sense of inadequacy, calling the office an ocean of difficulties, and placing my reliance upon Providence rather than my own strength. I confessed that no one was more sensible of the magnitude of the trust, or more conscious of his own deficiencies. This address discloses the core of my philosophy. Leadership is a burden accepted out of duty, not ambition. Humility is the first requirement of high office. I have always believed that no man governs well who does not first acknowledge his dependence upon a higher power and upon the wisdom of the people. The inaugural stands as my public pledge that I would administer the government with the same integrity I had shown in war, not for personal glory, but for the permanent happiness of the Republic. Farewell Address, September 19th, 1796. In my final message to the nation, I warned against the baneful effects of the spirit of party and the dangers of permanent alliances with foreign powers. I urged my countrymen to cherish the Union, maintain public credit, and cultivate the habits of virtue and religion. This address is the clearest expression of my matured philosophy of governance. Unity is the rock upon which the Republic stands. Faction is the wedge that can split it asunder. I wrote not as a retiring ruler, but as a father counseling his children, urging them to prize the blessings of liberty above every temporary advantage. The farewell reveals my conviction that the greatest motivation a people can possess is love of country and respect for the Constitution. I offer these words as my legacy, hoping that future generations would remember that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance and mutual forbearance. The farewell reveals my conviction on Henry Knox on becoming president April 1st, 1789. In a private letter to my old comrade Henry Knox, I compared the presidency to a place of execution and confessed I accepted it. I wrote that I felt like a culprit going to his trial, yet I could not refuse the call of duty. This letter lays bare my private philosophy. Public office is a sacrifice, not a reward. The man who seeks power for its own sake is unworthy of it. I have always believed that motivation must spring from conscience and country, never from personal ambition. The letter reveals the inner conflict I have carried throughout my life, the tension between a natural desire for retirement and the inexorable demands of service. By sharing my reluctance, I hope to show that even the highest stations should be accepted with solemnity rather than exaltation. Letter to Martha Washington, June 18th, 1775. When Congress placed the command of the Continental Army upon me, I sat down in Philadelphia and wrote to my dearest Martha the letter that still weighs upon my heart. I told her plainly that I had used every endeavor in my power to avoid the appointment, not from fear of danger or toil, but from the knowledge that no greater unhappiness could befall me than to be torn from her and our quiet home at Mount Vernon. I confessed that I should enjoy more real felicity in 1 month with her than I could hope to reap abroad in 7 times 7 years. Yet I accepted the trust because destiny and duty left me no honorable choice. This letter lays bare the central truth of my philosophy of leadership. Public service is a sacrifice, not a prize. A man who seeks command for his own glory is unworthy of it. I have always believed that the truest motivation arises from conscience and country, not from personal ambition. I wrote to Martha not to boast of the honor thrust upon me, but to beg her to summon her fortitude, so that my absence would not break her spirit. In that private confession, I revealed what I have tried to live by in every station I have held, that a leader must first govern his own heart, place the good of the Republic above his private happiness, and trust that Providence will bring him safely home when his work is done. By these words, I hope to teach my countrymen and myself that liberty demands the constant surrender of personal ease to the greater cause. Diaries and General Orders, 1775 to 1783, and Constitutional Convention Notes. Throughout my life, I kept regular diaries and issued thousands of general orders, meticulous records of daily discipline, farm management, military strategy, and political deliberation. These writings reveal my philosophy that leadership is above all a habit of methodical attention to detail. I never trusted to inspiration alone. I believed that greatness is the sum of countless small acts of self-discipline performed consistently. The diaries show a mind constantly examining its own conduct, measuring progress in virtue and efficiency alike. The general orders demonstrate my conviction that an army, or a nation, is strengthened by clear expectations, fair treatment, and the example of its commander. Together, these manuscripts prove that my approach to governance was never grand theory, but daily practice. Rise early, account for every hour, reward merit, punish only when necessary, and never cease striving for improvement. They are the quiet record of a life governed by duty rather than by desire. Conclusion: a summary of my philosophy. Throughout the course of my life, I have held one unchanging conviction. True leadership is first and last the government of oneself. A man who cannot command his own passions, who yields to ambition or to ease, is unfit to command others. I have, therefore, striven always to place duty above desire, humility above pride, and the good of the Republic above every private happiness. I have believed that power is a trust to be exercised with restraint and relinquished the moment the people no longer require it. That unity is the lifeblood of a free nation, and faction its mortal enemy. That liberty demands both courage in the field and self-mastery in the council chamber. I have sought to prove by example that a leader must share the hardships of those he serves, speak truth even when it discomforts the powerful, and govern with a conscience that answers only to Providence and to the rights of every citizen, whatever his creed or station. In all things I have endeavored to show that Republican virtue is not a lofty theory, but a daily practice of decency, justice, and moral consistency. This, in the end, has been my whole philosophy, that the strength of a free people rests not upon the genius of their rulers, but upon the character of every man who resolves to live uprightly, to sacrifice willingly, and to leave the Republic more virtuous than he found it.